Welcome to Cybersecurity Sense, a weekly podcast providing updates and insight into the latest in cybersecurity. Brought to you by LBMC Information Security. Now, here's your host.
Hi, I'm Bill Dean, Senior Manager here at LBMC Security. Thank you for joining us. Today, we're going to talk about some of the basic information security questions that many organizations are just overlooking. This week's podcast is actually inspired by an article I ran across on the nopassiveincome.com website last week. Full link is going to be in the show notes. While this is not my normal go-to source for information security news to share, the simplicity of the article really caught my attention. The simplicity that it went over reminds me of something I'm beginning to convey to clients, prospects, and audiences at some of my speaking engagements. What I like to tell people is that cybersecurity is not extremely complex. It's just hard, and it requires a long-term commitment. So let's talk about some of the basic questions organizations need to begin or even enhance their cybersecurity program. First, do you know what types of sensitive data you have? In my opinion, we're well beyond the time in which computers are just making us more productive. That bell curve is gone. Computers exist for two reasons, in my opinion: to create and store sensitive information. That's why we have them, if you think about it. Customer and patient payment information in the form of debit and credit cards, sensitive personally identifiable information, otherwise known as PII, of our customers, patients, and even our employees. Your financial information in the form of wire transfer and ACH processes and how those are conducted. For a note on that, please listen to episode 9 of this podcast, the business email compromise. We are encountering so many of these issues. So please listen to that and build some resilience against attacks on your wire transfer and ACH processes. So sorry to get on a soapbox there. Also think about some of the trade secret information and intellectual property that makes your organization great. Every company or organization has information that falls into one or more of these categories. This is what helps you conduct business. Many times you're being entrusted with this information from your customers, your clients, your patients, and it is your duty to do what you can to protect it. So once you realize what sensitive data that you have, do you know where it is? Do you know where it's located and stored? Yes, we know that it's in your air quote database, but where else is it? Is it in spreadsheets and text files on file shares? How in the world can you protect this sensitive information if you don't know where it is? Go through the exercise of finding out where it is. The truth is you cannot protect every device in your organization. What you must do is find your sensitive data and build some additional controls around those devices that store it. Do you know what hardware and software is on your network? This seems simple and is as basic as you can get, but it is one of the most complex things that ends up really hurting organizations. How do you know what you need to patch when critical vulnerabilities are made public and are actively being exploited in the wild? Rumor has it this strongly contributed to the Equifax breach. I've intentionally not spoken much about the Equifax breach for a lot of different reasons, but they had an application called Struts that had a critical vulnerability that people were exploiting. How many of you know whether or not you have Struts on your network? Rumor has it Equifax didn't have a good hardware and software inventory to realize that they needed to patch that. There have been numerous instances in the past in which there's a vulnerability that's being exploited in the wild, whether it be Heartbleed or, even having Windows XP systems in which clients would come back to us and say, do we have this on our network? How do you know if you need to patch these things if you don't even know that it's there? If you're going through your routine patching, Struts is not going to show up on your list. Please keep an inventory of hardware and software to where you know what needs to be patched when critical vulnerabilities are released. This one is huge. Are you training your users? So cybersecurity is not an IT issue. It's a boardroom issue, but it's an entire culture that includes employees. At the end of the day, computer security really comes down to users. You can spend millions of dollars on cybersecurity products and technologies and services, and the decision of one user can circumvent it all. Users must be trained on phishing attacks, spear phishing attacks, pretexting in which someone is calling someone else to get information or to maybe get them logged into a website to provide credentials, tailgating. While it seems pretty old school, if someone can follow someone else into an organization, plug in a USB drive into a workstation that's unlocked and start an executable, now someone has remote access to that network. Baiting, this still happens. Someone will drop a USB device around a printer or on a bathroom sink, and it'll have an enticing document name, executive salaries, Q4 2017, when really it has malware in it. When they open the document, it may open up a back door into that network. That's going to circumvent firewalls. That's going to circumvent many of the controls that you have in place because the user made that decision. And then overall password management. Users must learn to create sound passphrases, passwords to protect the network, because when it comes down to it, authentication is what protects the bad guys from getting to your information. Train your users upon hire and annually at a minimum with some of the latest cybersecurity attacks. Details or statistics from Verizon data breach indicates 95% of the time when nation states have footholds into a network, it all starts with a phishing campaign. Next, are you using multi-factor authentication for remote access to your network and email? If not, you need to start now. In the past few months, out of our incident response practice alone, multi-factor would have prevented, here's some examples, more than $1 million in loss due to wire fraud from the business email compromise. And that same client lost upwards to $1.3 million if you count each time this happened to them. If they would have had multi-factor in place, this would not have happened. Unfortunately, we had a client that had inadvertent disclosure of patient information. They had to tell the public that information was accessed via remote access. Again, referring back to podcast episode 6, the risks of remote access, multi-factor would have prevented this. Instances in which, litigation is now in place involving fraudulent financial activity, which would have prevented from if had multi-factor in place. Even one instance where litigation is in place and allegedly there's been destruction of evidence in a cloud email system because they didn't have multi-factor authentication. There's also been embarrassing impacts on company brands that multi-factor would have stopped. Overall, I would wager that more than half of the incidents that we've worked in the past 6 months out of my forensics practice would have been prevented if multi-factor for remote access to systems and remote email, specifically Outlook 365, would have been enabled. Enable multi-factor now. Do you know where to find cybersecurity expertise when you need it? Would you know who to contact if you did have a system compromise or a network compromise or, hopefully never, but a breach? Are you having third parties perform risk assessments and penetration tests on your information technology infrastructure? While the personnel that designed and implemented your systems may seem like a logical choice to do this, I kind of put this in the category of you can't grade your own homework. Okay, I can't take credit for that saying. I picked it up from the penetration testing book, Red Team, How to Succeed by Thinking Like the Enemy. It's a good book if you want to pick it up, but think about it. You really can't grade your own homework. So the people that have designed and implemented your technology systems should not be the same people that are auditing them. Technology is similar to the medical field with the amount of specialties that exist. For example, programmers, network engineers, system analysts, support analysts, system integrators, etc. Each of these are disciplines within the information technology field, but they're completely different. Even the information security field itself has very specific disciplines like risk assessors, auditors, forensics experts, incident responders, penetration testers. Again, each of these are very focused disciplines in which they're focused on what they do. The point of all this is to make sure that you have the expertise that you need to help you sleep at night, to know that someone has looked at your systems and that you have some level of confidence that you're resilient against today's attacks. So kind of in takeaway, cybersecurity, again, it's not extremely difficult, but it's hard and it requires long-term dedication, focus, and commitment. It's not a once-a-year project. It's something that's day in and day out. If you don't know where you are, how do you know where you need to improve? How do you know how to fill those gaps? I've provided a link in the show notes to, and I've mentioned in the past, the NIST Small Business Information Security, the Fundamentals Guide to get you started. Do your own type of, checkup to see where you are, and then find third-party experts to come in and help you do these things. But you don't know where you need to be if you don't know where you currently are. If you recall, through this entire podcast, not once did I suggest that you invest in a technology product. Cybersecurity is not about the latest product. Cybersecurity is people, processes, and technology. And yes, I know that's a cliche, but note that technology is listed last. Many companies already have way too many products that are simply providing a false sense of security. And of course, they come with a 20% renewal each year, and these products are an investment and they're expensive. If you really want a strong security posture, products can't help you avoid the hard work of cybersecurity basics. So in closing, thank you for listening. Tune in next week for our next episode. If you have a particular topic that you would like to hear in this podcast, please contact me at bdean@lbmc.com. To learn more about LBMC Security and the services we provide, please visit lbmcsecurity.com. Have a great week.